Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the podcast where we take your sources, find those key nuggets of knowledge, and give you a shortcut to being, well, truly well-informed. Today we're diving into something, well, fascinating and maybe a little unsettling sometimes. The world of power dynamics. Our mission here is to unpack some ideas from a pretty controversial book, The 48 Laws of Power. Now, we're not here to endorse this stuff, okay? It's more about understanding the mechanics of power laid out in these sources, helping you maybe recognize these things when you see them.
Exactly. And what's really striking is how the source takes these, really complex human interactions and sort of boils them down into these actionable principles, often quite counterintuitive ones. We'll explore how these laws suggest someone can become more effective, supposedly, in gaining and keeping influence, all by understanding human nature, maybe in its rawest form.
It sounds very pragmatic, almost clinical.
It is, very much so.
Okay, let's get into it then. A big theme running through these laws seems to be that power isn't just about what you do, it's how you manage what people see. Perception is key.
That's a huge part of it. Take Law 46. Never appear too perfect.
Right, which sounds odd initially. Don't you want to seem competent?
You do, but the source argues that being too perfect, displaying flawless talent, well, it often stirs up resentment. Envy, even. It gives Sir Walter Raleigh as an example. His natural grace, his talent, apparently made others quite envious.
Okay. So what's the advice then?
The idea is to intentionally show a minor flaw, or maybe express how burdened you are by your responsibilities. It kind of turns that potential danger, the envy, into pity or even support. Like the Athenian general Cimon, super wealthy, successful, but he apparently deflected envy by being incredibly generous to everyone, made him seem less threatening.
So it's like a strategic humility, making your power feel less intimidating.
Exactly. More palatable. But that raises a good point, doesn't it? Could that backfire if it seems fake?
Yeah, could people see right through it? Does the source talk about that risk?
It implies the flaw needs to seem natural, not something major that makes you look weak, but just relatable, something human. It's about disarming people, not making them think you're incompetent.
Okay, disarming. That makes sense. So if showing flaws is one way, Law 6 talks about selective honesty, which honestly sounds a bit tricky. The book claims one sincere and honest move will cover over dozens of dishonest ones.
Wow. Right. It suggests these open-hearted gestures, or maybe a timely gift, can disarm even really suspicious people. The classic example is Count Lustig. He supposedly conned Al Capone by appearing honest and actually returning money to him at one point.
Returning money to Capone? Seriously?
Apparently. Capone was so used to deceit, the story goes, that this one act of seeming honesty just completely lowered his guard. There are other historical examples too, like Duke Cien using the strategy, when you're about to take, you should give. Soften them up first.
It feels like a psychological Trojan horse, doesn't it? Using one moment of sincerity to just crack open the defenses for later manipulation.
That's the idea presented. But like you said, what if your reputation is already shot? What if people know you're deceitful?
Yeah, what then? Does sudden honesty work?
The source warns against it. If you're known for being dishonest, like the diplomat Talleyrand apparently was, then suddenly being honest just makes people more suspicious, like, what's he really up to now? So Talleyrand, interestingly, kind of leaned into his reputation for lying. He embraced it. And paradoxically, that let him keep deceiving people because nobody could ever tell when he was being straight or not.
Wow. So you play the expectation. Okay, so it's not always about seeming honest. Sometimes it's about making the other person feel smart. Smarter than you even. Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker, seem dumber than your mark. I feel like I've seen this one in movies.
Oh, definitely. It taps into that universal desire to feel intelligent. The trick, according to the source, is making your target feel not just smart, but smarter than you. Once they buy into that, their ego gets puffed up, right? And they stop looking for ulterior motives.
Because they think they've got you figured out.
Precisely. There's an example with some financiers, Harpending and Ralston. They convinced these prospectors, Arnold and Slag, to sell a really valuable diamond mine. How? By downplaying its worth. They acted like they didn't fully grasp its value, suggesting the prospectors were smart to sell before bigger tycoons fleeced them.
And the prospectors felt superior, took the deal,
and got swindled. Catherine de Medici is another example, using her attractive maids, or flying squadron, to get information from male courtiers. The men likely underestimated her, seeing her just as a socialite using pretty faces, while she was gathering crucial intelligence by exploiting their weaknesses.
It's a really subtle form of flattery, then. You weaponize their ego against them. The book specifically points out targeting the dissatisfied, the insecure, people whose neediness makes them vulnerable.
Yeah, those looking for validation are easier marks for this kind of ego boost.
Okay, still on appearances.
Yeah.
Law 37. Create compelling spectacles. This is about the power of imagery, symbolic gestures, creating that aura of power. Why is the visual so much stronger than, say, a logical argument?
Well, the book puts it bluntly. The truth is generally seen, rarely heard. Our visual sense is just primary. It hits us immediately, often bypassing our rational filters. Think about Diane de Poitiers, mistress to King Henri II. She cultivated this whole cult of Diana around herself using specific imagery, symbols, which apparently kept the king utterly devoted. It wasn't just logic, it was this powerful visual narrative.
Like branding, almost.
In a way, yes. Even a captured painter, Fra Filippo Lippi, the story goes, won his freedom just by sketching his master on a wall. The visual power of his art communicated more effectively than any plea could have. Visuals hit the emotions first.
So you craft this potent visual story that just grabs the imagination, sidestepping logical objections. Okay, and building on that, what about Law 44, the mirror effect? Disarm and infuriate by mirroring. How did that work?
The mirror effect is framed as this perfect deception tool. By mimicking someone's actions, their values, maybe even just their way of speaking, you can achieve a few things. You might confuse them, make them feel an odd familiarity, or even subtly irritate them, throwing them off balance so they overreact.
How so?
Think of Alcibiades, the Greek general. He famously adapted himself completely to whatever culture he was in. Spartan simplicity in Sparta, then lavish Persian ways in Persia. He mirrored them to gain favor and hide his real aims. Or Marie Mancini with Louis XIV. She apparently mirrored his own idealized self-image back to him, helping create that whole Sun King persona. She fed his ego, his fantasies, by reflecting what he wanted to see.
So you seem to share their world, their values, but you're actually subtly guiding them, keeping your own agenda hidden. Very clever.
We're very manipulative, depending on your view.
Right. Which brings us to Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. This sounds like conformity, but it's framed as strategic discretion. Why is showing unconventional ideas so dangerous, according to this?
The core idea is that flaunting unconventional ideas, especially if they challenge the status quo or are way ahead of their time, just invites trouble, suspicion, persecution. It doesn't actually achieve anything except making you suffer and isolating you. Campanella's persecution is mentioned as an example of suffering for challenging norms, or Pausanias, a Spartan general who adopted Persian customs. He was isolated, punished, lost his influence because he didn't behave like others in Sparta.
So the practical cost is potentially huge power, freedom, maybe worse.
Exactly. The advice is essentially, keep your radical thoughts for those who will understand, but outwardly. Play by the established rules, respect the local customs to avoid backlash, and maintain your position.
It's like tactical camouflage. Blend in to survive and keep your options open.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about managing perception, appearances, but what about actual interactions, dealing directly with people? The next set of laws seems much more focused on that ruthless pragmatism in relationships, allies, rivals, you name it. Where do we start with that?
We start right at the core. Motivation. Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude.
Wow, that's blunt.
It is. The book is very clear, reminding people of past favors you did them, appealing to pity, mostly useless, it claims.
So forget sentimentality.
Pretty much. Instead, you have to figure out how helping you will benefit them, what's in it for them. That's the lever.
But doesn't that feel really cold? I mean, purely transactional. Couldn't that damage relationships in the long run, alienate allies? Does the book address the downside?
It doesn't really frame it as a downside. It argues that feelings like gratitude are weak, they fade, self-interest. That's constant, reliable. It uses the example of the Athenians choosing to ally with Corcyra over Corinth. Corinth pleaded based on past goodwill, but Corcyra offered a clear strategic naval advantage. Guess who Athens chose?
Corcyra, the strategic benefit.
Exactly. Or Emperor Ieyasu in Japan choosing the Dutch traders over the Portuguese. Why? The Dutch focused on trade and tech, which he wanted. The Portuguese also pushed religion, which he didn't. It was about his needs.
Naked self-interest wins.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
Although, there's a small reversal noted. Sometimes, powerful people are motivated by displaying charity or mercy, but mainly because it makes them look good, feel superior.
Ah, so it's still about their ego, their self-interest, just in a different form.
You could say that. So you might frame your request as a good cause they can publicly support, appealing to that desire for status.
That's a really interesting twist. Okay, so if self-interest is the key, how do you get people to actually want to go along with you without just forcing them? What's the art there?
That's Law 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others. Coercion, the book says, just breeds resentment. It might work short term, but that resistance is always there, waiting.
So force creates backlash.
Right. The real art, it suggests, is seduction. Not necessarily in the romantic sense, but appealing to people's individual psychology, their emotions, their fears, what they secretly desire or value. Zhuge Liang, the ancient Chinese strategist, is cited. He pacified barbarian regions not just by conquering cities, but by winning hearts. He understood what they needed and offered it, knowing a peace won only by force wouldn't last after he left.
So it means really digging deep, understanding each person's unique inner world, not just applying a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly, which leads perfectly into Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew.
Thumbscrew. That sounds painful.
Metaphorically.
Yeah.
The idea is that everyone has some hidden vulnerability, a secret insecurity, an uncontrollable emotion, maybe a hidden pleasure or fear, a gap in their personal castle wall.
Okay, a weak spot.
Find that weak spot, the source says, and it becomes a thumbscrew, a point of leverage you can use.
How do you find it, though? That sounds like serious intel gathering.
It involves careful observation. The book tells the story of Irving Lazar, a Hollywood agent. He apparently knew the studio head Jack Warner was vain about his physique, so Lazar cornered Warner naked in a spa to pitch a deal.
Naked. Seriously.
That's the story. Warner was supposedly so embarrassed and desperate to escape the situation that he agreed to the deal on the spot. Lazar found his thumbscrew vanity and embarrassment. Catherine de Medici's flying squadron, again using social situations, maybe seduction, to find out the courtier's weaknesses, their secrets.
So you watch for the little things, what people try to hide, what slips out unintentionally.
That's the idea. Relentless observation, subtle probing. It's about finding what's not consciously controlled.
Okay. Now, Law 20. Do not commit to anyone. This sounds like playing hard to get, almost. But isn't there a risk of just seeming flaky or untrustworthy?
There is a risk, and the book acknowledges it. But the core argument is that rushing to pick sides makes you dependent. You lose independence, maybe even respect, and you instantly make enemies of the side you didn't choose.
To stay above the fray.
By staying uncommitted, or appearing to, you become sought after. Different sides compete for your support. You become the one holding the cards. Henry Kissinger is used as an example. His survival through multiple U.S. administrations, even Watergate, is partly attributed to this strategic distance. He wasn't seen as too loyal to any single person or faction, so his expertise was always in demand. People pursued him.
So you become the prize because you're unattached.
That's the theory. But, as you said, there's a reversal. Take it too far, never commit to anything, and yeah, people won't trust you. You might seem unreliable. So sometimes you do need to commit, at least outwardly, for appearances. But the key, the source stresses, is maintaining your inner independence. Always.
Got it. Keep your options open mentally, even if you align publicly sometimes. Okay, what about Law 40? Despise the free lunch. I like the sound of that Japanese proverb. Nothing is more costly than something given free of charge.
It's potent, isn't it? The law warns that things offered for free often come with strings attached. Hidden obligations, expectations of gratitude, guilt trips. Traps, basically.
So pay your own way to stay clear.
Exactly. Keep yourself free from those subtle entanglements. But then, interestingly, the law also flips it around and talks about strategic generosity, giving things away yourself.
As a tool for power.
Yes. Baron de Rothschild, spending huge sums entertaining the French aristocracy. It wasn't just about fun. It showed he valued their culture over money, which helped him gain acceptance and influence. Louis XIV using lavish gifts and positions at court to essentially buy the loyalty of rebellious nobles, making them dependent on him.
So you become the source they rely on.
Right. Even a smaller example, an art dealer, Fushimi, paying an artisan for a mediocre teacup. Why? Out of kindness, supposedly, to free the artisan from an obsession and validate his effort. But that kindness likely bought significant future loyalty.
So be super wary of gifts you receive, but understand the power of giving gifts yourself strategically. Makes you look at generosity differently.
It certainly does. It's about the underlying transaction, hidden or open.
Right.
Okay, we've covered perception, relationships. Let's shift to the final section, the sort of overarching mindset. the tactics of the prudent strategist. And we start with what the book calls the most important skill. Law 19, know who you're dealing with, do not offend the wrong person. Why is this number one? Because the cost of getting it wrong is potentially catastrophic. The core message is, never assume everyone reacts the same way. People are different. Some hold grudges forever. Wolves in lamb's clothing, the book calls them. Offend one of them, and you might face lifelong revenge.
So you can't just apply these laws blindly to anyone?
Absolutely not. You have to study people, understand their specific weaknesses, their pride points, their insecurities. Don't rely on gut feelings or first impressions. Gather actual intelligence. Joseph Devine, the art dealer, again, he famously had clients' household staff on his payroll. Why? To get inside info on their tastes, habits, desires gave him a massive advantage.
Wow, actual spying.
Pretty much. Talleyrand used social events, parties, to gently extract information, find weaknesses in foreign diplomats. It's about deep reconnaissance before you act.
So gather that concrete knowledge first. Choose your targets, your allies, your opponents very carefully. Avoid those costly mistakes. The source says this law has no reversal.
None. Because misjudging someone powerful or vengeful is just too dangerous.
Okay, so once you know who you're dealing with, Law 29 says, plan all the way to the end. Think ahead, avoid surprises. But life's messy, isn't it? How practical is it to plan everything?
Well, everything might be impossible, but the principle is about having a long-term vision. The ending, the ultimate outcome, is what matters most. This law pushes for meticulous long-range planning. Think through consequences, obstacles, potential twists. Don't let your hard work get undone or stolen by someone else at the last minute because you didn't anticipate the end game.
So you don't get blindsided.
Right. And you know when to stop. Talleyrand's maneuvering against Napoleon is cited again. It wasn't about arguing directly. It was setting this irresistible trap. Based on understanding Napoleon's known impulsiveness and need for glory, he planned for Napoleon's predictable reaction. Cardinal Retz noted that people often focus too much on immediate dangers and not enough on the distant ones that could trip them up later.
So it's like chess. Thinking several moves ahead, gently guiding things towards your desired outcome, resisting those quick wins that might derail the long game.
That's a good analogy. Discipline is key.
Okay, but sometimes maybe things are too predictable. Law 39. Stir up waters to catch fish. This sounds like deliberately creating chaos. Isn't that risky?
It can be, absolutely. The idea here is that sometimes when things are calm, people's true intentions or weaknesses are hidden. Stirring things up emotions, conflicts can force them out into the open.
Make them react, show their hand.
Exactly. It disorients opponents, forces them to act, reveals their nature. The Chinese general Cao to scapegoat blaming a supply officer for his own mistake to divert his army's anger away from him. Created a distraction, shifted blame, manufactured outrage, or Cardinal Richelieu staging a false trial and execution of an innocent marshal. It wasn't really about the marshal, it was a warning shot to a real conspirator and anyone else thinking of crossing him. Created a spectacle with a hidden message.
So you create a controlled burst of anger, a dramatic scene, shift blame, lure people into traps. But how do you keep it controlled? How do you stop it blowing back on you?
That is the absolute crucial point. The anger, the chaos, it must be manufactured and under your control. Real, uncontrolled emotional outbursts, those are self-defeating. Think of Napoleon apparently raging at Talleyrand, it didn't help him. The advice is often to appear weak or provoked. Taunt your opponent into acting rashly, and then you, remaining calm, can easily handle them. Houdini letting a rival think he'd stolen a handcuff trick, only for Houdini to escape easily anyway, humiliating the rival.
So you control the narrative, control the emotions, even if they look like your emotions, maintain that inner calm.
Always.
Okay, shifting from stirring things up to focusing. Law 23. Concentrate your forces. Efficiency. Intensity over extensity. What's the deeper strategy here?
It's the idea that spreading yourself too thin dilutes your power. Intensity defeats extensity every time, the source says. Find one key point, one rich mine, and focus all your energy there. Dig deep.
Don't chase too many rabbits.
Exactly. Napoleon's military genius often came down to this. Concentrating overwhelming force at the enemy's weakest point. Not fighting everywhere at once. The Rothschild banking family's dominance came from strategically placing sons in key financial centers. London, Paris, Vienna, Naples. Each concentrated their influence in that sphere, creating a powerful network through focused effort.
No battle, business, whatever. Pour your energy into that one decisive point to break through. Make your strength count where it matters most.
That's the principle. Though there's a note of caution in the reversal. Pushing for total concentration, like a monopoly trying to control everything, can lead to isolation, inflexibility, and eventually collapse from within. Sometimes interdependence is stronger than absolute independence.
Interesting balance. Which leads nicely to Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. This feels like a vital warning. That moment of success can be dangerous. Why is winning sometimes so risky?
It's often about hubris, isn't it? Arrogance, overconfidence. They creep in after a big win. You get carried away, pushed too far past your original goal.
And create new problems.
Exactly. You might create more enemies than you defeated, or overextend yourself, or simply look greedy and arrogant, which invites backlash. The advice is, have a clear goal. Once you achieve it, stop, consolidate. Tolstoy apparently observed lawyers who ruin a great cross-examination because they don't know when to shut up. They score points, then keep going and dilute the impact or open new doors for the opposition.
Know when to take your winnings and leave the table.
Precisely. Cyrus the Great used a clever trick to win a battle, but the emphasis is on knowing that precise moment to halt before victory turns sour.
Success is intoxicating, but strategy requires discipline, a well-timed exit.
Absolutely.
Okay, finally, Law 48. Assume formlessness, the ultimate adaptability. A fixed plan makes you a target. This sounds hard. How do you actually be formless?
It's about being fluid, adaptable, unpredictable. Like water, the book says. Make your strategy impossible for opponents to grasp. It contrasts the game of Go with its fluid, encircling strategy against chess, which is more rigid, linear, aggressive. Formlessness is more like Go.
Unpredictable moves.
Right. Mao Zedong's guerrilla warfare tactics, that jigsaw pattern, are cited as an example. It completely disoriented enemies expecting conventional battle lines. Sparta, incredibly strong militarily, eventually failed, partly because its rigid system couldn't cope with Athens' more fluid, adaptable culture and use of, well, money and diplomacy.
So true power isn't being the immovable object, but the ungraspable force, always changing, keeping enemies off balance.
That's the idea. And this is critical. It's not about being passive, just going with the flow. It's a strategic pose. It's about actively creating tactical surprises, keeping the initiative, forcing them to constantly react to you. It demands constant awareness and agility.
So it requires immense discipline and awareness, not just drifting.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more, related to change and identity. Law 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. What's the big danger of following a legend?
The shadow is just too long. The book warns that if you succeed someone truly great or have a famous parent, you basically have to achieve double what they did just to be seen as their equal. The comparison will always be there, and it's usually unfavorable.
You're constantly measured against them.
Exactly. So the solution offered is, don't try to fill their shoes. Create your own shoes. Change course. Establish your own identity, your own name. Metaphorically slay the father or the predecessor's legacy. Louis XV trying to copy his great-grandfather Louis XIV's system. It failed. He couldn't live up to it, and he contributed to the revolution.
He was trapped by the legacy.
Whereas Alexander the Great, famously cutting the Gordian knot that was symbolic, he was declaring, I'm not following the old rules, I'm making my own path. And he arguably surpassed his father Philip's legacy. Pericles in Athens also deliberately changed his public image and alliances to differentiate himself and build his own power base, not just inherit one.
So you have to consciously break from the past, create a new narrative, blaze your own trail. Otherwise, you risk just being a footnote to someone else's story.
That's the stark warning.
Wow. Okay, so pulling this all together, this deep dive into the 48 laws of power really shows a world where, well, pragmatism, sharp psychological insight, and very calculated actions are presented as the keys to influence. It's a stark look, sometimes uncomfortable, but definitely illuminating about human behavior when power is the main goal.
It is. And if you think about the bigger picture, the thread running through it all is that understanding these patterns, even if you find them morally questionable, even if you'd never use them yourself, can still equip you. It helps you navigate a world where, let's face it, self-interest is often a primary driver. The book encourages this detached, analytical view of interactions, treating emotions maybe as data points or tools, rather than letting your own emotions dictate your strategy.
It definitely gives you a provocative lens, doesn't it, for looking at history, current events, even just daily office politics or family dynamics. It makes you question the surface motivations, challenges those assumptions about how things should work versus how they sometimes do work, according to this perspective.
It forces a certain kind of realism, perhaps.
Yeah. So as you go about your week, here's something to chew on. If power really is a kind of game, as this book frames it, and if appearances often count more than reality, What assumptions might you hold about honesty or directness that maybe need re-examining, especially when you're trying to achieve something, gain influence, or even just protect yourself in tricky situations?